Story 1. Being told to do something that I'm already doing or just about to do is frustrating. I still remember working in a kitchen 20 years ago, sweeping the floor and being told, "Make sure you sweep over here too." I was already sweeping right next to where they were pointing. I was taking care of the whole floor. It was part of my job. Story 2. People answer phone calls on speakerphone in public. People leave shopping carts between vehicles in parking lots. Story 3. This is new for me. Someone who owes me money told me to stop texting and calling about it. They said, "When I have it, I'll reach out to you." I almost blacked out from rage. Story 4. When someone tells me to do something, I am already doing it. Edit. My mistake. I forgot to include it. Edit. My mistake, it was not needed. Story 5. When people are rude to minimum wage employees, if you are yelling at a minimum wage worker, I will likely end up yelling at you. Story 6. Drivers who don't let you in when changing lanes. There is negligible time to be gained. It is just a foolish power move. Story 7. Bullies can be found both online and in real life. I instinctively want to defend the victims and have done so on many occasions. There are numerous bullies on the internet. Story 8. Pockets getting caught on door handles is frustrating, especially when it happens when I am already in a hurry. Story 9. Weaponized incompetence is something I address frequently. Are you not completing that task correctly because you don't understand it? I can help with that. Or are you sabotaging it because you don't want to take responsibility? Story 10. When people arrive at my home unannounced or inform me they are coming without checking if I am available, it can be frustrating. Story 11. Forgetting an online password and resetting it, only for the application to inform me not to reuse a password. Story 12. Our government is disappearing people right now, like that Canadian actress who vanished for 2 weeks over a minor visa issue. The only reason she got out is her fame. While in jail, she met people who were in limbo for 11 months. Why? Because for-profit jails have a financial incentive to keep people in. Story 13. People do not stop at four-way stops or traffic lights when I am clearly walking in the crosswalk. If they hit me, there is a camera right there. Story 14. I met a 102-year-old woman in 1991 in Starkville, Mississippi. She was living in a retirement home where I was working. She had scars on her body from being whipped as a slave years after slavery ended. She asked me to never use that word. She died a few days after I made the commitment to fight against it. I have carried that promise with me since that day and have taught my children to be against it as well. Story 15. I work in a specialized technology field. There are 2 things that frustrate me. First, tenured coworkers have the ability to look up readily available information that is part of day 1 training, yet they still ask for help. Second, technical marketing employees believe they determine the accuracy of data when, in reality, their role is to document the information provided by the development team. Story 16. Men who believe it's acceptable to grab me from behind as a joke and think that inserting sex into every conversation is humorous. Story 17. Any and all comments on Facebook make me feel even more like a misanthrope than I already was. I just need to stop looking. Story 18. The orange guy, that unusual-looking individual who is the unofficial vice president, Kanye, and individuals who lack self-respect. Story 19. When I knock something over by moving my hand, it feels like a significant failure of my dexterity. The internal anger it causes is overwhelming. Additionally, people who drive well below the speed limit on any road are quite frustrating. Story 20. When people walking on the sidewalk do not move over, I simply stop walking and let them almost collide with me. Story 21. People randomly come to a halt in the middle of a shopping aisle with their large cart, large body, and even larger ego. Story 22. My girlfriend and I have a headboard with a shelf on it. One night this week, I swung my arm up to stretch, hit my water cup, and drenched myself in ice-cold water at 4 a.m. A couple of months ago, I did the same thing, but with our bong. Having bong water in your hair and on your pillow at 4 a.m. will bring out the rage in anyone. Story 23. People are stealing the seats of others on a plane and demanding seat swaps. I paid for and selected my seat in advance. You better be trading a seat in first class for my coach seat, or leave me alone. I don't care about your being separated from your companions, your anxiety, your comfort, your job, your medical problem, or any other excuse you present. Wanted that seat? You should have booked it. Lost the seat for other reasons? Be grateful you managed to get on the plane at all. Also, being volunteered by others without my knowledge or consent is frustrating. I told someone you'd do X. Really? That's news to me. I don't recall being asked. You have to. I am going to look bad now. Story 24. Using public places for private benefit. Examples include off-leash dogs on disc golf courses or setting up a picnic in the middle of the fairway. Parking in the brick cul-de-sac middle roundabout in your neighborhood is not allowed. Story 25. When the electronic device won't work, like the printer refusing to print, the movie not streaming, or the Wi-Fi not connecting, it makes me instantly and irrationally furious. Story 26. When someone leaves puzzle pieces scattered everywhere, eventually losing one of them, I cannot express how I feel when a 10,000-piece puzzle becomes worthless and incomplete forever because someone threw the pieces away. The same applies to any board game. Story 27. People who block the entire aisle in the grocery store. People who impose their religious beliefs on others. Story 28. Coworkers who have paid sick time available but come to work sick and then make me sick. It is the ultimate in selfishness, in my humble opinion. Story 29. People who stop in or just after the exit doors at the supermarket can be frustrating. Don't worry about the carts lined up behind you. Take your time remembering which row you parked in. It's important to be aware that others are also navigating the space around you. Story 30. Screwing something up that I need to fix while the clock is ticking can be stressful. I have to rush to meet a deadline or catch a flight. That's when my body suddenly says, hey, maybe this isn't the best time, but you need to use the restroom right now or you'll have an accident. Just letting you know. Story 31. Usually clumsy actions I have performed while at home include fumbling my sentimental coffee cup onto the ground first thing in the morning. Story 32. Rules for thee but not for me. I am guilty of this every now and then. Usually I catch it. Some people, however, completely lack self-awareness, and they are in charge of you. Story 33. In a restaurant, there is one table with young children, 5 years old and younger. The kids are loud and behave poorly while the parents do nothing. Story 34. People discard items simply because they no longer want them, even though the items are still functional and could be helpful to others. Story 35. As a man, I am deeply concerned about domestic violence against women. My father hit my mother when I was younger, so anytime I hear about domestic violence, I am reminded of it. It makes my blood boil. Anyone who physically takes advantage of someone who is smaller or weaker than them is a coward. Story 36. Getting out of my car with many items in my hands, I thought I could make a single trip. I ended up dropping some of them while the car door was slowly closing on my legs as I tried to get up from my seat. Story 37. When someone wrongs me and then acts dismissive when I confront them, they are typically very attentive if the roles were reversed. Story 38. Overly religious individuals who believe the purpose is not to focus on their own spiritual development but to ensure that you conform to their beliefs. Story 39. Anytime Trump states another mind-blowingly ridiculous fever dream of his as fact, all the brain-dead supporters believe it as gospel. Story 40. Anyone who supports Trump is in favor of his project, which involves advocating for the termination of children based on their nationality. This also indirectly implies support for harming American children. Story 41. Trump or any of his supporters. I will walk away the second someone compliments that individual. Story 42. People do not put away their shopping carts, leaving them in places that make it easy for them to roll down the parking lot and hit a car. Story 43. The dismantling of U.S. democracy has been occurring for decades, but most people have only recently become aware of it. Story 44. When I was already silent and crying after an argument, the other person kept talking about the entire situation with no end in sight and continued insisting on revisiting the whole thing again. Story 45. People tell me what I'm thinking and advise me against doing what they believe I'm thinking, while I am actually doing exactly what they want me to do, and they just assume I'm incompetent. Then the person decided he actually liked me as a worker after I confronted him. Construction is frustrating. Story 46. When someone drops cutlery or something into the soapy water in the sink while I'm standing there doing the dishes, I remain calm about most things, but that drives me irrationally insane. Story 47. When someone owes you money and you've given them an extension, it can be frustrating to see them post about something frivolous they've spent money on after telling you they don't have the money to pay you back. I understand that not having money can be difficult. I am willing to give someone as much time as they need to pay me back if it means their child gets to eat. However, your dogs did not need a 12th new bed. I usually do not lend money, but I do not want to see a child go without. If you need money to fix your car to get to work, I will help you out. However, please do not show me frivolous spending while you still owe me that money. Story 48. People are speeding across 3 lanes on the interstate with no regard for human life. If you miss your exit, just take the next one. It's not that big of a deal. Story 49. 1. Knocking something over accidentally. Being asked several questions in succession that I do not know the answers to and cannot take the time to find them. Story 50. A friend of mine sadly became difficult to deal with. He had his ups and downs, but recently he has been behaving arrogantly, believing that every girl is interested in him. He recently asked me how wealthy people can be overweight, as they can easily afford high-quality food. By the way, he has struggled with eating disorders in the past. Story 51. People who do not use signals when turning or changing lanes are simply not making an effort. Story 52. Filipinos who continue to support corrupt politicians are, without a doubt, endorsing individuals who are criminals. Story 53. People who drive down the turn lane to avoid traffic, knowing they have no intention of turning, only to cut in front of others and continue straight, are fairly common in South Florida. Story 54. There are many benign human behaviors that occur at the grocery store that, when combined, leave me amazed that we ever crawled out of the ocean. Story 55. Any form of pop-up, such as cookie consent requests, notifications for push subscriptions, and newsletter signups, interrupts my progress in obtaining the information I'm seeking. Story 56. Texting and driving is dangerous. The green arrow stays lit for only a few seconds. Please put down your phone and clear the way. Story 57. Driving behind someone as you both enter the highway on-ramp can be frustrating when they only reach speeds of around 38 miles per hour, forcing you to merge into 60+ mile per hour traffic because they are unwilling to use their accelerator. This is one of the few times I find myself yelling in my car. Usually, I can brush off most traffic situations. However, merging onto the highway at such slow speeds is something I will never understand or tolerate. Story 58. People who cut in line as if they are more important than others frustrate me. I will speak up every time I see this happen. It infuriates me. Story 59. Reddit's obsession with politics is evident everywhere. Even in communities focused on cute animals, candy, or Hello Kitty, discussions often veer into political topics. It would be better to reserve those discussions for dedicated political spaces. Story 60. Clothing gets caught on a doorknob, or my crossbody purse strap gets stuck on my hood when trying to take it off. Story 61. When people in public lack self-awareness or consideration for others, it can be frustrating. This is a trigger that often carries over from childhood. Story 62. Seeing someone mistreat a dog that is just looking for love feels deeply upsetting. The same goes for anyone who makes my children cry or hurts them. There is something in my subconscious that triggers a strong protective instinct. I don't know why, but I become very angry about these situations. It's concerning as it could lead to serious consequences for me. Story 63. I feel like I have no agency or freedom in unfair situations, and this is true in any situation. Pure, seething hate and rage arise as a result. Story 64. When uninformed individuals display their ignorance and poor behavior as a badge of honor. Story 65. Conspiracy theorists claim that we did not go to the moon, the earth is flat, and that vaccines are a form of systematic harm. Story 66. Automated systems and online forms are frustrating. I do not understand why. I can manage my annoyance with humans and choose to be nice and understanding. However, a computer shows no remorse. Story 67. Messing up my dinner, like burning something, not having my Yorkshire puddings rise, or forgetting a key ingredient, frustrates me. I invest a lot of time into my cooking and want it to be perfect, ideally as good as or better than what I could buy from a restaurant. Story 68. Sexual assault cases and physical abuse, especially if they involve people I care about, are deeply concerning. It is striking to witness a normally non-aggressive person become aggressive in such situations. When I was around 19 or 20, a friend made a joke by calling us and screaming that her boyfriend was beating her before hanging up. She was at his place, which was close to me. A few minutes later, she video called to see our reaction. We were just 1 block from his apartment, and the 3 of us had wooden legs that we had unbolted from my dining room chair in our hands. We told her that this was the dumbest prank she could have possibly played, as we take such issues very seriously. It took us about another hour to calm down once we returned to my apartment. Story 69. People who do not proceed at a green traffic light often wait until just before it turns red, causing delays for others. Story 70. ASMR involves repetitive sounds and visuals. I have misophonia and misokinesia. Story 71. Influencers, especially in health and wellness, often lack medical backgrounds and intelligence. They merely regurgitate information found online, offering harmful medical advice while promoting questionable products. The public readily consumes this content because quick fixes are often perceived as more appealing than hard work or understanding. Social media allows this phenomenon to occur unchecked. Story 72. Someone at work is telling me what to do even though they aren't my boss and have nothing to do with my position. Carol, I will talk to my supervisor. Thank you for your input. Should be enough to quiet them, but they just keep going. Story 73. I have an overactive adrenal gland. Essentially, I can activate it whenever I want to. This increases its function. Story 74. When I'm listening to a nice, relaxing podcast before bed and get jolted into rage mode with an overly loud, "Hey listener, you love podcasts, but have you tried this widget? Go to our website for these widgets." I hate it so much. Story 75. When someone asks me a question and provides an answer on my behalf, then claims I responded in a certain way when I did not have the opportunity to reply. Story 76. When a customer is upset, they often do not allow me to explain that there is a solution. Story 77. Getting stuck at a red traffic light more than once can be frustrating. I know it's irrational, but my patience tends to vanish when I'm driving. As a passenger, I feel fine, but when I'm in the driver's seat, I can become grumpy easily. Story 78. Buying my cheek because I know it is going to swell, and I am going to bite it 3 or 4 more times before I remember to avoid that side of my mouth for chewing. Story 79. Recently, all of the corporate middle managers have been brought on as my company looks to be acquired. The original 12 employees, including myself, who built the company have less equity collectively than any single one of these vice presidents. All these individuals do is throw out bad ideas, rehash old decisions, and take up the air in every room. I hate them. I hate myself for letting it happen. I dislike their wingtip shoes. Story 80. When people stand upright as a plane lands and try to scramble to grab their belongings, it is understandable only if they have a connecting flight to catch. Story 81. Slow walkers whom I cannot pass without being rude when I am in a hurry, or people who stand on the left side of escalators when I need to catch a train. Story 82. People can be reckless while driving. I don't know why, but irresponsible drivers always make me angry. Story 83. People who pull out in front of you while driving, especially when there is no one behind you, can be infuriating. My frustration escalates drastically if they drive slower than I was previously. Story 84. When I misclick something, especially when I open a program I didn't mean to open, it instantly sends me into a rage. Story 85. Losing things, especially when I had them fairly recently, is frustrating. My copy of Hail to the Thief disappeared before Christmas, and I cannot find it anywhere. I never lend my CDs out, and it is driving me mad. Story 86. Bad drivers. Use your turn signal, put down your phone, and do not do your makeup while driving at 70 miles per hour. Story 87. Poor customer service and the need to provide multiple verifications of identity when calling a company to prove who I am. Story 88. Slow drivers, unaware individuals, and people blocked in the grocery store are oblivious to the world around them. They move like non-player characters, carelessly navigating their surroundings and often impeding progress. Story 89. You don't understand. No, you are not following me. You are not getting it. Is there someone who knows what they are talking about here? Story 90. Opening the pantry or a cabinet and having items fall out because the last person didn't store them properly is frustrating. That alone makes me feel very upset. But if an item falls and hits me on the head, that anger is overwhelming. Story 91. Trying to figure out how baby gear works. Baby seat? You might never find the button that loosens those straps. Foldable stroller? That's right. You'll learn how to do it safely after you accidentally hurt yourself when it unexpectedly sprang open. Story 92. Getting ridiculed for saying something correct. Saying a correct pronunciation got me ridiculed because they don't use it. It was neither. Apparently nay Thursday is uncommon, where nay Thursday is the only way. All of this is happening as English is my second language. Story 93. The buildup of poor displays of conscience and decency includes emergency support vehicles bypassing red lights, people cutting in at highway exits, and individuals making abrupt left turns when the light turns green. Parents immediately giving devices to children, loud throat clearing in crowded places, and abandoning shopping carts in parking lot stalls are all concerning behaviors. The list seems endless and occurs daily. Story 94. When people try to impose their pronouns or sexuality on you, I have no problem if you're gay, transgender, or any other identity. However, trying to force it on others is completely wrong. Story 95. Someone, whether a friend or acquaintance, approached me from behind and playfully slapped me on the ribs as a friendly greeting. Story 96. I attended the symphony last night, and a woman a few rows back kept talking to her friend. Although she was speaking quietly, the nature of the performance, which isn't always very loud, meant that everyone within a few rows could clearly hear her entire conversation. I feel fortunate to enjoy experiences like this every few months, but I was very upset thinking about the person who brought a date, saved up for tickets, and had to listen to this distracting conversation the whole time. Story 97. While driving, some people think the space between my car and the one in front of me is just for them. It is not. It is for my own safety. Story 98. When I am working and people don't say hello or thank you, is it so hard to say hi? I want this, please. Story 99. My anger level doesn't go over around 30. Life is too short. I will say, though, that some of the actions former President Trump is taking are getting me quite worked up. Story 100. Saying they are going to pay you back, but they have said that 3 other times in the past, so you know they are most likely not going to pay you back. Story 101. Snagging my belt loop or coat pocket on a doorknob earns extra points when I'm carrying something like groceries. Package mishandling and a collective shoulder shrug while my items bounce around the country are frustrating. Story 102. Abusive, negligent, and generally horrible parents and families. Some people should not be allowed to have children. The stories I read and hear from victims of poor parenting, often on Reddit, make me wish there were a mandatory parenting license required before anyone can conceive. Story 103. When people tell me to cut the attitude when I don't have one, I realize they're the ones with the attitude. Story 104. People who don't merge quickly on a highway ramp should match the traffic flow and move over. Story 105. Someone, especially my dad, putting their hands on my lower back to push me forward or direct me makes me feel angry. Story 106. Listening to people who are not transgender and do not know any transgender individuals personally, trying to describe and explain my life to me, and claiming to understand me better than I know myself. Story 107. Adults casually trying to sneak past people in a line. Adults desperately pushing their way forward to get a seat on public transport. Story 108. From an elementary teacher's perspective, school administrators earn double what teachers receive. Drive nice cars, do minimal real work, and seem to recoil at the thought of spending time with students. They are wholly unsupportive yet power-hungry, prioritizing the most trivial and nonsensical tasks. My administration resembles a popular girls' clique in high school. Petty, narcissistic, superficial, passive-aggressive, and completely lacking depth or empathy. Story 109. Elsewhere on Reddit, someone shared that their mother passed away when they were 7 and had written them a letter before her death. A few years later, their stepmother discarded the letter. I was immediately ready to confront the stepmother on behalf of this anonymous Reddit user. Story 110. People at the supermarket who suddenly discover that they have to pay only when the cashier announces the price, not a minute sooner. This is followed by a long and arduous search for the wallet hidden deep in a large purse or inside a vest pocket. The lengthy extraction of the credit card or the careful verification of the cash on hand is also a sight to behold. Story 111. Good things tend to happen to bad people because they put themselves first, while bad things happen to good people because they become entangled when trying to help. Story 112. People driving in the left lane are not even going the speed limit or are just going the limit. The left lane is for passing people. Wake up. Story 113. When people withhold tips or any payment from me at work by snatching it back multiple times when I go to grab it, thinking they are being flirty or trying to manipulate me into a date. It's usually men. The last guy who did this, I threatened to hit him with his own beer. I can't take it anymore. Story 114. Inconsiderate drivers. Tailgating, lane hogs, and those distracted by their phones or driving below the speed limit. Being accused of actions I did not commit. Individuals who act tough online, whether on social media or in gaming. I doubt they would behave the same way in person. The stigma surrounding mental health disorders often reflects on a person's intelligence and education. Use of racist language. Disrespect toward any of my family members. I thought I only had one situation that raised my anger. As I get older, I find I have more patience with most things. People no longer face physical confrontation. Story 115. Cigarette butts are a useless waste of oxygen when discarded on the ground. Some individuals even have the audacity to claim they never do that. Story 116. This is really petty, but when I see gluten-free used as a marketing tactic on products that are clearly gluten-free, like a bag of nuts, it really irritates me. Story 117. Driving. As soon as I pull into traffic, someone does something that frustrates me. I'm done with it. Story 118. Being mean or rude to seniors is unacceptable. I witnessed a man repeatedly asking an older couple at the bar if they would be leaving soon because he wanted their chairs. He wanted to sit alone and watch his favorite college basketball team. Karma caught up with him when his team lost and was eliminated in the first round. Story 119. Waking up in the morning and turning on the news to see Trump signing a new executive order that he thinks is brilliant but is actually detrimental to America. I'm Canadian and live in Canada. You'd think it shouldn't affect me, but it does. Story 120. Littering occurs when people flick their cigarette butts out of their car windows. I find it particularly frustrating. Story 121. Dodo-doodles are individuals who wander around obliviously without considering others. Assholes share similar traits but possess the added annoyance of feeling superior. For example, a pair of dodo-doodles walked slowly in the active driveway of the breakfast spot I visited, holding up traffic. An asshole would glance back, see you, and then refuse to move aside. Story 122. Being accused of doing something I didn't do or being accused of not doing something I did do is fundamentally being falsely accused. I was the older mistake child who got blamed for everything, and it has become my biggest trigger. Story 123. When you make a perfect long shot into the garbage can, only for it to bounce off another piece of trash and fall on the floor. Story 124. People who accuse others of misusing accessible parking because they are not visibly disabled, even with a permit in the vehicle window, should mind their own business. Story 125. Someone is being condescending or negative when they could have simply introduced a different topic of conversation. Story 126. People are driving well below the speed limit on the highway in the express lanes. When you are paying extra to go faster than the other traffic, please consider doing so instead of slowing down everyone behind you, who is also paying, to speeds more than 10 miles per hour under the limit. Story 127. People who lack spatial awareness can be frustrating. I am consistently aware of those around me, whether they are behind me, in front of me, or approaching in an aisle. It drives me mad when someone stops to check their phone, look at something, or chat, without considering that other people are trying to navigate the space. Story 128. Driving through the Costco parking lot. Pushing my shopping cart through Costco and trying to navigate around the carts that people have left in the middle of the aisles. Story 129. If I ask about food or sauce, such as a dip, they insist I try it even though I don't want to. Story 130. This is extremely counterintuitive, but I get very angry when someone else becomes very angry over a provable fact. Story 131. Being unhelpful and having no input when I am trying to make a decision, then suddenly being full of ideas once a decision is made. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.